Hello and welcome to Supernova Spotlight. I'm Adrienne Elise, and I'm so happy to be here with you with Lauren Mancaton. And Lauren is an artist in Santa Fe and is a long-time professional artist as well as teacher, intuitive mentor. And so I'm excited to talk to Lauren more about awakening the creative fire. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you, Adrienne. So lovely to be with you. I'm a Supernova Soul fan and part of the tribe, so I just
Yay.
love the work that you do.
Well, wonderful to talk with you here today and put the spotlight on this incredible work that you've been doing. And it's beautiful to see you in your studio and look at your work behind you. And um, your bio talks about how you are an artist and a teacher and intuitive mentor. And so um, you describe that as being dedicated to supporting artists and finding their truth.
Mhm.
And this is such a beautiful energy that you have been able to join, like a supernova soul, the intuitive energy with the art world. And that's the journey that is interesting. How has that been for you? And what does it mean, this supporting artists and finding their truth?
Yeah. Well, it's been a long journey before it became that in particular. And I went through a lot of trials under fire. And I think the first one for me was graduate school where I got my MFA in painting and did the academic route back in the early 90s. I have been a lifelong lover and student of metaphysics and spirituality and practices of astrology and tarot, and just as an empath and and into it, it's just that has been my route of sensitivity. And so that comes first. The art comes second. It's always been that way. I embarked on graduate school. It was in Portland, Oregon, and maybe I didn't do, I mean, I'm taking responsibility. Maybe I didn't do my research. I went there and I studied under some paintings a year before, and it was a small program. They only take 5 a year, and they did not support at all where I was going with spirituality and transformation through art. I was accused of being, whatever this means, woo-woo. I would never be taken seriously if I talk like this. You can just all imagine. And out of graduate school, about a year later, I was going to quit. Literally, I was going to, what am I doing here? And before I got my MFA, I did dabble with, should I get a degree in art therapy or should I get an MFA? Now, I wanted to take my work seriously and take it into a professional realm. So I chose the MFA route. But I always had the lingo of healing. I've always been interested in psychospirituality. And my mom is a Jungian therapist. So I learned that lingo at a very young age. I'm calling it lingo because I think it goes way beyond that. And some realms are very limited. And so after graduate school, I literally was reading a book on the Oracle of Delphi, and it was written in a stance of you can bring your dreams to the Oracle. And I remember that night I got on my hands and knees and I started praying. And I prayed for a dream. Like, what am I going to do? I don't know. This is my life. I love art, but I feel like I'm not seen. Hello, not seen. So that night I had a dream. I I was up in a warehouse and one of my colleagues was making art out of recycled materials in the middle of the floor. And to the left were these radiating portals, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. not unlike that sort of radiating entity there with the color. And I saw the size, I saw the shape, and they were all lined up. And an elder woman took my left elbow and an elder man took my right elbow. And they said, "Do you know what your work is about?" I said, "No, please tell me." They said, "Your work is about the raising of frequency through color." I'll never forget. I woke up that morning and it wasn't like anything huge, but I went, "Eureka." And now it took me a decade, but I actually made those portals. And I actually had them in a show where they were all lined up 30 by 30. So, to answer the second part of your question about bringing people to their truth, I was also in graduate school where I was from the old paradigm, patriarchal paradigm, break them down and build them back up in your own image. So it was all about formalism. Do not show emotion. It makes you look ditzy. You just keep it, paint like me, basically. And then I was floundering out of graduate school because before that, I was making work that was very healing and expressive, healing and eating disorder. Just, I really was in touch with that. And it was almost like I had to start over after graduate school because I got too much in my head and I could hear their voices, and I didn't trust my instincts. I didn't trust my intuition. I thought I needed another technique. I was copying other artists, trying to emulate them, and I lost myself. So I would get, and this was 30 years ago. I got my MFA in the 90s. So close to, yeah, I was going through my Saturn return at the time. So now I'm going through a new Saturn return, new and bright and shiny Saturn return for those that know about that kind of thing. And I worked in academia for a while, teaching a lot of technique. After 30 years, I've got a lot of mixed media techniques under my belt. So I taught and I did the circuit of teaching workshops across the country and art workshop spaces. And I moved to Santa Fe a decade ago and I left academia. I saw something that was a trajectory that I didn't really want to be a part of. And I went into private practice. And as I'm growing as a spiritual being and an individual, and whatever is arising for me, I just needed to be in a surrounding of what I was teaching that was true and authentic, with all our vulnerabilities and all our fears. And I wanted, and I do, I'm all about the individual and what are those fears, because they're all connected to each other. We don't live isolated. And what are their goals? And so we kind of bust through paradigms and breakthroughs because, believe it or not, and you might, when we show up in front of a blank canvas, especially if we don't have a lot of painting that we do, all our fears in life show up on that canvas as if it depends on it. So I think that answers the question.
That's so powerful. Thank you. Wow, what a journey. And it's so supernova, huh? To have that, you can just feel that there's this force that we've seen, work in our lives and in the world against the light, the truth of who we are, this truth you're talking about. And here you came in with this energy of truth you're already expressing, and then the system whittled away, at your intuition. I've seen this like in, it's almost like those narcissist empath relationships where those oftentimes they get, there's this gaslighting that gets you to doubt your intuition. It's all about, getting you to invalidate and doubt that. And it's so powerful that you stuck with it and you said, no, I'm going to be an artist. So for us, we have a beautiful gift in knowing you and your work as Supernova Souls, because you can help us bridge back to this creative and help us to overcome and to work with the power of the medium of painting. And so that's a really so then you began to it seems like then after graduate school, you took that as far as like that very powerful vision that you tell us about, which is so supernova too. Here we are, our best friends are these, I don't know, the wise old man and the wise old woman that took you by the hand. And I just love the imagery of those portals and these colors and to own that truth. And it's funny because so yeah. And so I was wondering about this. You talked about in on your website that you wanted to bring others people's help other people come into a contemplative space and also go, you said, beyond the five senses
Mhm.
to carry the viewer and carry the viewer into abstract iconic representations of spirit. And that is just a beautiful way to describe your work and your teachings and your offerings. And it's powerful to hear about that. You like your vision that you had, that I feel like without that vision, it would have been hard for you to say yes to bridging these worlds
Sure.
and being a representative
Yeah.
of the power of intuition and art. We're talking about astrologically this new renaissance. So the work you're doing in this awakening the creative fire within is incredibly important. So,
Oof.
what is this energy of going beyond the five senses?
You know, yesterday I was listening to, some people might know Lee Harris. He's a channeler, but and he brought something up, and I'm, it's what I teach, so I already knew this, but I'm just going to kind of reiterate it. He was saying that some people, when he was it was a webinar and teaching people how to channel for themselves, a free webinar, so you can probably catch it on YouTube. And he said, at first, we just start writing. And when I'm working with people, we do a lot of random writing as well, and other techniques to get into their intuition. And he said, well, people are saying, not everybody, but I'm just making this up. This is just this, what is this? And he said, spirituality and creativity are tied together. When we really get into our right brains, we let go. And when we let go, spirit can come in. And it's not about, I need to make a masterpiece. It's just an avenue of clear communication when we open those channels and allowing for whatever it is we want to express, the joy, the sadness, the grief. Sometimes people, I have a dive deep program, and I've had quite a few therapists that will come through, and also those that are working through grief. It just seems to be a theme. So the grief takes a while to just like get it out. And it's not like a planned painting. It's just whatever arises, just be in that present moment. And it's interesting for myself because it took 10 years for me to get back there after grad school, I would say. Because when I was 22, I taught my first expressive creative workshop in the back of a new age bookstore. And I was all gung ho, but then that infiltration comes back in. So I think of that as a gift now. If I wouldn't have had all that fear and what happened to me, I wouldn't be able to translate it of understanding when I see it in others.
Yeah, the
In there.
blocks to
Yeah.
creativity.
And I still get blocks. If anyone thinks, oh, channels are open, I'm just going to make great work forever and ever. No, it does not work that way. I walk in sometimes, not so much anymore, but even 5 years ago, I'm an imposter. It's not our voices. So my goal is to get you to your voice. So back to the question of the five senses. And I do this. I have on my site a 30-day art journey, which is really inexpensive. Go at your own pace. But one of the week, and it's a weekly theme. I always do a meditation to just ground us with the theme. And one of them is called our seven senses. And we have our five senses. We can see, we can touch. It's a 3D reality. Touch, hear, smell, taste. And then we have growing out of it into, well, 4D is more time. It could even be 5D. We are evolving. Perception, where we actually shift perception. So here I am viewing this experience I don't like. And with the tools of like taking ourselves out of the left brain into the right brain, because we can paint it out, or even here's an intuitive exercise. We walk out our door, we take a short walk. There's trash on the side of the road that was just left there. There's a swaying tree, and I can shift my perception of what I see visually, as if I was going to like draw exactly what I see, the tree, the trash, or I can take that perception a step further and begin by shape, color, sense. Shape, color, sense. What is the message of the trash? Oh, am I not cleaning up my own mental baggage, my own experience? The swaying tree, do I need to be more flexible? What does flexibility feel like if I just paint the feeling of flexibility? So, shifts in perception. And then the seventh one is I call it networks. We're all connected. We all share the same fears. We all share the same love. We are not separate individuals that the powers that were are trying to make us think we are or were. So once you start connecting into that, you can realize, oh, I'm making a painting and it isn't even for me. This is either for the world or I just need to get it out. And those networks happen in groups. I've seen it again and again. I've taught that. I was going to say thousands, but hundreds. I could be 1,000. In workshop settings, people will come in and nobody will be talking to each other. And we can look around and we might have grabbed through that network a certain color or image, and there it is. People are almost repeating it. And we can talk about what it means to them individually and what it means to us collectively.
Yes, and that is so interesting. And being supernova soul, you've experienced this where we have these similar themes that come up, and we're so individual. Supernova souls have all these individuals' talents and skills and experiences. You can see from talking with Lauren as an example, and yet we have a very similar story throughout this evolution. And so it's powerful to connect into that collective consciousness and separate ourselves, like you said, from the personal experience of the art and let source come through and work through us.
It is such magic. I mean, I love the workshop setting of, I'm not so much the teacher anymore when people come to me and say, oh, I need to curate my Instagram so it's perfect and not perfect, but so I'm branded and I need, to get all my paintings on a website because they haven't sold. And I might ask, how long have you been painting? And they might say 2 years. And I'm like, we don't know our voice. We're out trying to get the next shiny thing, the next workshop that might bring us to be an artist, the 4 steps to being an abstract painter. And it doesn't work that way. I don't believe. I believe if you really are going to want to be an artist, you need to be willing. The best studio practice is a closed studio door so you can get to know yourself for a while. What does Lauren want? What does Lauren believe in? That's kind of the crux of intimacy with self. A third thing is born. You've got you, the painting and you create that third entity of what the work's about. And people like to bypass it. Oh, I don't want to write about my work or talk about my work. It speaks for itself. Well, think about it. You're missing a whole beautiful developing relationship with your creative practice, your own creative fires within. because it is about getting to know yourself. And as we all know, we all have shadows. So it doesn't always feel great, but wow, I believe creativity is the gateway to higher consciousness.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And thank you for representing that in the world and in your work. That feeling of just losing yourself in the creative process, finding trust again. It's so similar to the way that we've described or what's come forward in the supernova tribe. We're realizing that a lot of our brand is about connecting back to the mother energy and awakening the divine feminine, which is also this creative fire. And it's really cool because the way you just described that is it's kind of this energy that's been coming up in this when we go to turn back to the nurturing and the mother and healing ourselves and healing our heart. And there's a feeling at first of shame around having turned away, as we heal this illusion of separation. But then, then there's the breakthrough, the breakdown, the vulnerability that we can move through. And there's this kind of exactly the word you use, like intimacy. It's almost like a flirtation. And this is how it feels when you're, really into your creative process and trusting yourself. It's like you're dancing with the mother. If we see the mother as manifest reality, and we're her and she's a part of us. And it's just this really juicy experience of feeling home and safe. And I love that you do this intuitive work and allow that to be a space for people to come and learn and expand their painting.
I love working with individuals as well, either through mentorship or them coming here to the studio. And one reason, and I can do this in workshop too, it's about me I don't, you're an intuitive. We're all intuitives. It just takes practice. Really feeling into the individual and where their blockages might be, and really assisting through creativity a breakthrough. It's not so much, you don't have to be an artist. Okay, I believe our system, especially our education system, when I started becoming disillusioned, was when I was having to go to meetings in academia where they wanted to start setting up a system of testing people for art. And I'm like, oh, this is not going to go. This is not going well. And you hear it. I hear it. Oh, I'm not creative. Oh, I'm not an artist. Well, you know what? We all are creative. We have just forgotten, and our education system and our society has set it up where we don't learn how to think outside the box, where we are becoming told what to do. And when we lose our creativity, that's like giving away our internal authority and power. And how you cook a meal, how you garden, how you play an instrument, how you dance, how you paint, it's all the same. When we're self-conscious, because really creativity is about unleashing our self-consciousness, which why the floodgates of higher consciousness can come in. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but there was a study by a man named George Land, Land. People can look this up. And he had worked for NASA. I think it was back in the early 70s. And he did some quantitative research of testing creativity. Not sure how, but he did. And so he took 5-year-olds and he started seeing their aptitude to think outside the box and creativity. And as time went on, their scores went down, not up. So we're born with it. We have it. I'll have a child in here and I'll have a Wednesday open studio with the adults in here and one child. And it's the child, who's uninhibited, who does a brilliant masterpiece, because there's that right left brain and we get stuck.
Well, that's what's so powerful about the intuitive work, awakening that and the power of that painting medium as like you said, the canvas. It is cool to remember that creativity is something we can access in just the smallest ways throughout our daily life, but also opening up to this expression of putting it out on the canvas, to being okay with being reflected in this experience and finding the false self, really, whatever that stuff or whatever might want to move so that the creativity, the source energy can flow. So
Yeah.
that's very powerful work.
I I've really set it up like in workshop spaces where we all work and we don't comment on each other's pieces until we're in circle. Maybe towards the end. I mean, I'll come around and work with people individually, but it takes you right out of your process. Imagine someone says to you, and this happens on Instagram all the time, which is why I often don't see a lot of growth. Oh my God, I love that. Don't touch it. Well, you're in your process and you're ready to make that next move. And of course, our egos want people to love things. I do. And so you stop. So it's really all about creating safe container, safe space so you can just do what you want. Because the thing is, this is how it's different than writing. If you're in a writing workshop, nobody's going to see it unless you share. When you're painting, other people will see it, but it's important in setting the intention that I often encourage: make the most ugly painting you can make. Please, please. This is not about beautifying. This is just about staying with the feelings for a while. Towards the end, if you're going to want to make it more so, I've got the tools to help you do that. But, just
Be in your process. That's so
it's a flow.
beautiful.
It's like I come to this again and again. It is, as we're evolving and things are breaking down and falling apart, I almost say this constantly every day: just stay in the flow. Flow. What's right in front of you? Just flow. I fail sometimes miserably, but
Well, what a beautiful mantra to share with us, and the energy of the picture of these creative forces beginning to flow in our life and our world again as we say yes to this energy. And I love that you said this. I wanted to talk about how you said you want people to love it. You want people to love it. And what if we're missing the point here, which is that's the beautiful part about your work. It's that it's so because I'm um, doing my own work with painting and finding that you immediately do start to judge the product. It's hard not to judge the product as you're putting it on the canvas and learning and um but really you put it in a nutshell there because you said you want people to love it, and I can from this and from my experience it's like you're what you really want in this experience is to as a visual artist to take something from your mind, or nature or whatever this use and show people how you see it. And it's about love. So it's really not that, I mean, it's like we want people to love the work, but really it's just the work is love. Like that creation energy moving, the experience of creating. Um, and so of course, yeah, then to get that energy to flow, you've got to have whatever might be stuck and stagnant moving, like we're talking about. And this is one of the things you said. Uh, I heard a quote from you that you said, art heals.
Mhm. It's about perception. I was talking about that earlier. It's just changing the perception. And a lot of it is, and we do this in meditation, we do this in prayer, is our minds have this idea of what it wants to be. But if we honor the painting itself, it can talk back to us. It's a collaboration. The healing begins when we do that letting go of, oh, I want to paint a tree and I want to paint it my own way, or I have these roots that I saw in my meditation and I need to do that. Absolutely begin that way. But as it starts taking on maybe something that you're like, what's going on here? It's not looking like I want it to look. That's where sort of the guidance comes in of just getting back into the flow. Because if you're, there's so many little things with paintings that I could go into, but here's just one. Not so much always with representational painting. And if someone's working representational in my mentoring, that's great. But with abstract painting, we'll be painting along and someone will say, well, I really love that right-hand corner. So they're painting around the right-hand corner. They're trying to keep the right-hand corner and the conversation has changed. And I'll say, the right-hand corner needs to go. Because if it's really important, it will come back. And isn't that like life? You're struggling to make something work and it's just not working and it's not working. And you finally surrender. And if it's supposed to be, it usually comes back, maybe not exactly the same, right? But in a different way. Same with the painting process. So that's how it's like life. And that's how it can heal. Because when you're surrendered and you're just allowing stuck energy to move and things to take place, and all of a sudden you're in communication and you're asking the painting what it's about, and it's telling you things that you're like, and I have exercises for that where it kind of can talk to you and you're like, oh my God, bring out the tissues, because something moves, something changes, and that's how it heals.
That's so powerful. And I love how you talked about it as a reciprocal, because this is what a lot of the messages we're getting about how to move forward in this world, to come back to the mother, come back to the love, come back to compassion. And it's like, she's saying, talk to me, be with me, work with me. And it's like that feeling of accessing these creation forces in that, like you said, it's you give, you put it out, maybe move, and then the the process moves, the creation moves, and you move together, and that it's like such a powerful energy for life right now. We're just being asked to surrender on such spiritually on such an intense level. So I could just see the art in the surrender, intuitively working with painting in this way, very, very powerful for us. And
Oof.
it's hard to surrender after you've been so maybe misled or mistreated and it didn't turn out well when you trusted before. And this is something else supernova souls we're all trying to heal. And so I could see this work bringing you back, having an opportunity to bring back to that place, trust through creativity and painting. So
Yeah. And
really
I,
wonderful.
I think the idea of the creative fire within, art is not elitist. It has been, since we've been painting in caves, since we've been drawing with sticks on the ground. I think of Venus of Willendorf. One of the first figurines ever found was of a goddess. Just unbelievable. I think it was in Catalhayak they found that. And we forget that. It should just be a natural part of our progression. Answers come too when you're in that flow state, like a meditation, right? And so I don't know. I believe in the work. I believe in it so strongly. And it's where we're going. Color heals, sound heals. I have these visions of being, in fact, I'm probably going to be working more with some collaborations, collaborating with you, collaborating with gong sound healers as we paint, things like that. I can't wait for the rooms to be developed where we can go in and sit under violet or sit under red and I know it's already started, but color heals as well when we really tap into it. The meditations, like I have one online class when the pandemic happened. I started these kind of raw, kind of fun, video classes live with people, but then I offered it. And when I first began, I would set up the room and I'd have my first week, we're going to do red. So I would have all my red paintings and a red set. And I would talk about the history of red. I would talk about the spiritual significance. I would then go into just how to use red, do a meditation, and then do a demonstration. And I did that with all 7 colors. And I've got to tell you, I did red, orange, yellow. And when I finally got to green, I went, and I did it separate weeks. So I would have a week and everybody else would have a week to really absorb this. When I got to green, I finally went, oh, thank God. Then, the higher octaves.
That's so beautiful. That's exactly how it works in the intuitive training that I teach, and that it's like, ooh, we're just moving mountains and those lower chakras, and then and you get to the heart and opening up into higher possibilities, and it's so beautiful. The the journey into color and your expertise in that. What a fun way to um open up those creative channels and learn to surrender. And we kind of talked about the surrender thing, but then one of the other quotes from your website is talking about assisting artists and stepping into their inner authority,
Mhm.
connecting to their highest vision through intuitive art practices and art making. And so it's interesting putting together this surrender, right? But also with that empowerment. Talk about what this inner authority is.
Um, I alluded to it a little bit, but many people will think it's about I need all this technique. And I think it's actually the other way around. You need to paint, 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 and then find the techniques that are supporting where your vision's going. And I see a lot of, and I'll just talk as professional work, people who want to be a professional artist. They one, I gave my power away, so I know about that, and trying to find my power again. It's about being brave. It is about how do I get to bravery first of all. And so there are little steps that you can do, because bravery means your voice, not what you think other people want, what other people, an authority says is a good painting. It is all you. And in many ways, we see this in memoir writing. We see this in art. This is the positive side about what's happening with humanity. People want slice of life memoirs where they're being honest, raw, and real. People want that with work as well, that people are buying. What is the story behind it? Who are you? And this goes back to artists saying, oh, my art speaks for itself. You're losing the huge connection to the intimacy of what you do. When you start naming what it's about, for you first, then it can go out into the world. And this is with any creative practice. It's about getting to know, what is your voice? What do you want to say? And if you don't know what you want to say, you just keep mucking about, because it will start presenting itself wherever we put our attention. We'll have a reflection back. And the more love and the more support we give a painting, like a jewel, and just say, you're really ugly, but hey, you're very dark, you're very black. Yes, I know that I'm in this process of transformation and allowing things in my life to die. So thank you, are a reflection of that. This is real. My inner authority is about being able to name that and say it out loud. And
So
not keeping it
powerful.
on the surface of, I need to make a painting that someone's going to buy. Oh, and that means I'm not an artist if I don't.
Yes, wow, the blocks we've talked about, from early in life, to judgment around creation, our creations, and isn't that what happened throughout time, as we talk about in the broader sense in the Piscean age, and persecution of the spiritual and the intuitive, and that uh judgment, and this is what you bring forward here, is this expression you're talking about, this your voice, and it so fits the astrology we're having right now with Jupiter and Gemini. You know, Jupiter expanding and Gemini being the voice and expression. And it feels like so many messages around this new renaissance, and that we have been silenced, we have been muzzled, we have been the voice, and the voice of the feminine, the intuitive feminine, the voice of truth, the voice of reason has been us. We had to put masks on. And so how do we open this up?
You know, it's interesting. I think first of all, sometimes we don't even realize. We don't realize how manipulated and controlled we are. I mean, we can start with TV programs. It's called program for a reason, you know, and I know that we're all individuals and we like to say, well, I'm not programmed. I think we've been programmed to not be creative. You know, there's number one. And so just how we can start can be as simple as, and this is where I'm going to give kudos to Julia Cameron for The Artist's Way. She had a big thing called Morning Pages, where you just randomly write first thing in the morning. And I'm also a huge fan of active dreaming. And active dreaming is remembering our dreams. And it's as simple as shifting that perception I talked about, the sixth sense, like what I did when I got down on my hands and knees and I prayed to the Oracle of Delphi. And it was, please let me have a dream tonight. You know, I've got this certain problem, whatever you're working on, even, you know, it's opening up your creative process. And even if you don't remember the dream in the morning, if you start writing about it, it takes you back to the feeling of it. And even when we're manifesting what we want in life, even when we're doing a creative project, it's not like, okay, it must have a red brick house with a fireplace off to the right. It's the feeling that you have when you're in it. So within that perception, morning writing, just random writing can help. What I talked about of, you know, taking a little stroll and looking at everything as a message. Everything has this fluid flow of a message for you, and you just notice. And so it's a way to get back to connecting to the world itself. So we're not an individual hung out to dry alone out here. We want to start feeling those in even if they're invisible at first, the invisible connection to our neighbor. You know, there's something in the yoga practice, yoga nidra, where yoga nidra, first you, if you were to close your eyes, first you connect to the sound in the room. Now, can you bring your perception to a sound outside? And if you were to then take that perception and imagine little tentacles of love, of connection, can you take it to your community? Can you take it outside, you know, to this earth realm? And then can you gather it together and bring it back and actually feel your presence? Like if we're two in our head, think of like marbles and you're just dropping them away and you get into your heart. And it's a practice. They call it an art practice too. It's a practice for a reason. And that, I think your original question was how to keep
Well,
people in their intuition.
well, it's just beautiful because that's exactly the energy of this space we're talking about, this sacred creative space when we can surrender, and the our the mental noise just all goes away, and we come into that silence and that dropping in that you're talking about. And that's a beautiful opportunity of this work
It's a
and
meditation
working.
technique for sure. You know, and every time I teach a workshop or I even work with somebody individually, if they're here, we drop into meditation first. And I do an active visualization guide of just, expanding our aura, bringing it back. What does it feel like to drop into our heart, and then our bellies? And so we can begin from no expectations. Just all you need is a childlike wonder, really, because of all the indoctrination, I'll call it, we need tools to relearn how to be our child selves again.
And that is so powerful that we know this, that we need to be like children to enter the kingdom of heaven is the story. And we can feel it. And it's coming back to that talking about the creative brain and trying to open up how we've been programmed to, if we've been programmed to not have so much access to our creativity, then we can reprogram ourselves and unprogram ourselves to access more creativity. And so it's so powerful to do that. And um so this this energy, I wanted to talk about how you what happened. You were talking about the transformation of graduate school, but how did you commit to be an intuitive teacher? I know you were a teacher, you said in academia and university level, teaching art. But how did you become an intuitive teacher?
Oof. I just, well, one, I got so frustrated and disillusioned and unhappy teaching a drawing class or teaching people how to paint. I've been at this 30 years, right? So I have to be true to me. And if I'm not, I'm going to be miserable. That's how I'm a free spirit that way. So I had to just start tracking, because when people started coming to me privately and were working in a group privately, as their issues came up, because what became imperative and most important was to hold space, and then to start really asking what each person's goals were. And as we're doing that, of course, their personal issues are going to come up. And then as a holding space person, holding space for others, I'm not the authority. I'm just the holder of space and to guide as it comes along, but I'm not standing on a soapbox telling people how it has to be. We are working in collaboration. So the more that my senses were coming alive, the more that my intuition was growing, and the more that I was questioning it, like, oh, this is really scary. This is scary. I can see this person next to me and all of a sudden know that something traumatic has happened without them telling me something traumatic has happened. Okay, now I'm holding space for them. Maybe we can work with that trauma through art without me having to say it out loud. And because that became louder and louder, it became my life. It started to become more of my life work. And my dedication, because my spiritual practices, wherever I'm going, no matter how scary they are, I didn't want to say it out loud for years and years. I didn't want to tell people, oh, by the way, I've been reading the tarot since I was 15 and I'm a really great astrologer and we can bring this in and work it with the art. I thought they were separate. And as soon as I started integrating, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going with the flow now. So that's where I'm at.
That is so inspirational for us supernova souls. That's so common when people find this work, and the supernova energy has to do with this call to live far greater truth, and bring forward what's within us. And so to hear that story and your bravery to step into this intuitive artist and teaching this and bringing this to the world, bringing this to people, it's so wonderful. So tell us about your, is there anything you want to tell us about? You talked a little bit about your current offerings or what you offer or work, how you work with people, but tell us a little bit about your individual and group work.
Sure. My group work is when I teach workshops, I have a soul narration workshop. That one just filled. I'll probably be doing one next year. The soul narration is really about working with the chakras and connecting to a guide or an animal spirit that comes in. And if, let's say it's a 4-day workshop, we would do 2 a day, and there'd be a meditation in the morning and the afternoon and painting that. And then I do paint big, which I really feel, even if you're not a painter, when you see a canvas in front of you, you get to use somatically your whole body. Where when we work small, it keeps us in our head. And I'm going to be doing more retreats. I'm really interested. I know, like you, Adrienne, more retreat settings where people can come and relax and just kind of ease into circle and working. I have videos online. I have that whole color series. Right now, I have a special, like all my video classes with like more than 15 hours for like 179. And it also has a 30-day art journey where you can go at your own pace, which has a real spiritual component to it, as well as the color class. My private mentoring, loving, you can come work with me for a day, coming to Santa Fe for a day with me. I don't know, but 2 days up to a week. Just contact me about that. And I also work online. I work with people mentoring online. And yeah, that can be found at Montecon, MANTECON studio.com. There's tutorials that I have you can find on YouTube, which is just Lauren Montecon. And I do a free meditation once a month and a free prompt. And so the prompt will go on my newsletter, which is free, comes out once a month. So if you kind of want to get a feel, you can go to Lauren Montecon to the YouTube and see all the meditations and some of the things that I've done in the past. And my Instagram is Lauren Montecon as well.
Wonderful. It is so great to have that body of work of intuitive support for the artist. Just so incredible that you've built that and you have all those offerings.
And
And
I'm also doing collaboration, like Adrienne and I are collaborating more to do psychic past life readings that is collaborated with painting, which, wow, what an amazing thing.
yes, it's exciting to announce the Awakening the Creative Fire workshop, creative visualization and painting workshop the last weekend of October in Santa Fe in Lauren's studio. October 26th, 27th, a 2-day workshop where we will immerse ourselves in this energy and awakening the creative fire. Allow Lauren and us will come into Lauren's sacred space and work with this sacred energy, working with that group intuitive work. What are the collective energies of our past life pictures that might want to come forward to inspire this process, and a deep dive into color together with all of this knowledge and wisdom that we bring together. And I just love the collaboration has been so fun. It's such an honor. And so I hope that you can consider that, and we'll look at repeating more
And
offerings on this level in the future.
October is like one of the most beautiful times to be in Santa Fe. And so we have a 2-day workshop. If you're coming into town, you want to stay longer to do other things. Really.
Really great energy down there, the land of enchantment. There's a reason why it's been so important to so many artists. And Lauren's just holding it down with the intuitive work and that connection to this energy. So, what a beautiful opportunity to come together and do this work. And I wanted to just ask you a little bit more as we come to a close in this interview, this time together, this sacred space, this having that intimate awakening, that opening door we talk about, to creative, to source through the creative process. And one of the things that you talked about in your blog called contemplating the spiritual essence, you talked about this feeling, coming back into connection with source and art and creativity as the way to do this. Um, and that this can bring a feeling that we're not alone in this vast universe and connected with something greater, larger than ourselves. And you use the word grace.
Mm.
So it's a beautiful image. And can you tell us more?
I feel it's not like you're going to sit down and paint and always have grace. It's like coming back to it again and again, as much as we can drop the marbles from our head, like drop it like a bone, and get back into a space that just allows for whatever comes out. And that is the grace. This sometimes when I'm painting, and there is intention that we set, like, please surround myself in white light. Please allow only the highest of possible guidance from my guides to come through, block out anything that not doesn't need to happen. But sometimes I can be painting, like I'll talk about that red one behind me. It was two inverted triangles for a long time. And I had this idea of what it needed to be. And I did it again and again, and literally over a year. And this like entity kept this woman, this guy, this angel kept wanting to be born. And I finally surrendered and said, okay. And then there she was. And sometimes when I'm painting, my hand goes like this, and I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And then when it's done, there's the grace. It's the still point. It's like if we're a vertical axis and we're living in this linear axis where we think A to B to C to D to E, quantum is not that at all. And a quantum takes an absolute surrender. So we keep practicing that. We keep practicing, okay, just let me breathe. Let me just settle into whatever is right here. That's grace.
It's beautiful. And it's also a surrendering and allowing ourselves to stew and say yes to those creative fires. And what a powerful opportunity to do this work with you, Lauren, and an honor and the creative space. And this, I can feel it together here in this discussion. And that safe and sacred space to open up to this mystery and magic back into our lives and have that this it coming back to the love, right? Like that we want people to love our work, we want to be loved, but do we, or we just want to be loved? We want to love the act of the painting, not always feeling loving necessarily, but
Oh, no,
that's
there's
the
going to
love,
be,
the process, this creative process, and being in that love and disconnecting ourselves from the attachment and letting it be love. If it's love, it's beautiful, right? Whatever wants to come through.
oh yeah, I can be in front of a painting and just crying, crying, crying. Other people can be in the act of painting and they're crying, crying. It's release. So, and then I can have people say, oh my God, I am so frustrated. I want to quit. Usually it's people that have some art experience and then they have what I call that honeymoon phase. They come and they just like just started painting and they're one great painting after another, and then they hit the wall. And they hit the wall, and I'm like, it's part of the process. That is normal. Anything that you're going to just commit to is going to show you exactly who you are, your shadows and all. But it's beautiful. So when people get frustrated with wherever they're going with their painting, I say either go to the details till something opens up. Just go to the details. You don't need to cover the whole thing and start over.
That's what happens to me when I get to that point painting, and I feel that I go back to kindergarten. I want to just you know, and that's when I need to stop and walk away. And but it is actually a beautiful concept. This is something we're going to do in the workshop together, and this delving into color and the chakras in all this wisdom that Lauren and I have worked with as far as the intuitive connection to color and chakras, and do that through wet on wet, very simple watercolor painting that's done in the Waldorf kindergarten. So we are going to go back to kindergarten and have this experience of color. Um, and each color individually, so we can come into that intimacy and also have that beautiful canvas that is, you can't make a mistake. It's painted in 2 minutes, and you're you just, it's a doorway into the creative process where and that'll be really, really fun to go back and have a little ceremony in Waldorf kindergarten, go back to kindergarten, and we can rewire those programs around creativity and have a beautiful experience together. So I cannot wait, and I look forward. I hope you can join us this time or in our next workshop. Stay connected with the information for the workshop is in the information box below. Awakening the Creative Fire with Lauren and I in Santa Fe, October 26th, 27th, 2024. And also links to Lauren's website and more information about Supernova Souls. So thank you so much for being here on Supernova Spotlight, Lauren. What a wonderful conversation and a dip into these creative fires together,
Thank you for that.
opening up to this energy again in our lives.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much. And I look forward to connecting with you soon and in New Mexico and this October. So see you there.
Bye.
Bye.